Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a history so strange it sounds like, I don't know, a rejected X-Files script. During the 1970s, right, height of the Cold War, the CIA collaborated on a research program focused entirely on achieving altered states of consciousness.
That's right.
And the goal, get this, to weaponize the mind. Use it as an espionage tool.
It sounds incredible, but it's true. This was the genesis, the beginning of the Gateway program. And while the CIA's objective was, let's say, highly speculative, they were exploring parapsychology alongside, conventional psychological warfare.
Okay.
The technique they actually developed, the Gateway Experience, or GE, it was rooted in specific measurable audio technology.
Okay, so the military goals, they eventually proved to be sort of pseudo-scientific.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the program was thankfully stopped for military use. But here's the mission for us today. Those once secret documents, they got released back in 2003. And now there's a new scientific study just published in 2025 that has rigorously validated the psychological benefits of this exact same very unconventional training.
Exactly. So we're going to trace that really bizarre historical path, connecting Cold War paranoia all the way to modern scientific validation. We'll show you exactly how this technique works, why it was created in the first place, and then we'll analyze this new data. Data proving that the Gateway Experience is actually a powerful tool, at least for short-term psychological improvement. It boosts 6 distinct dimensions of personal well-being.
Right, 6.
Right.
Okay, let's start way back then in the past, so the 1970s. It was this time of intense fear, wasn't it? Fear of what the enemy knew, what they might be capable of. And that apparently led the CIA to explore some truly fringe ideas.
Absolutely. The thinking was basically, if the Soviets are dabbling in remote viewing or mind control, well, we have to get there first and do it better.
That anxiety seems to have fueled the initial investment.
It really did. And the key players here, the collaborators, were the CIA and the Monroe Institute, TMI. TMI was founded by Robert Monroe way back in 1958. And Monroe, he was primarily interested in, charting human consciousness,
Sure.
exploring phenomena like out-of-body experiences, OBEs.
Okay, so TMI is focused on this non-physical exploration stuff, and the CIA immediately sees a potential military angle. Remote viewing this idea that the mind could, grab real-time intel from somewhere far away without any physical limits.
That was the hope. The intelligence community hoped the Gateway program could train personnel to achieve this really profound, altered state of consciousness, essentially turning them into, mental spies.
Mental spies. Wow.
Hey, let's be really clear here. The notion of remote viewing as some kind of reliable intelligence tool, there's absolutely no scientific support for that. Not then, not now.
Right. Important distinction. But the subjective experience of those states, the OBEs, the deep relaxation, that part is real, isn't it?
Yeah.
People do report those things.
Oh, definitely. Research has shown that these subjective experiences are, well-established phenomena. People report them. That happens regardless of whether the mind is actually skipping across continents or not. And that distinction is crucial here. The program failed to deliver on its military promise, but the method for inducing the state itself, that clearly achieved something.
So the training was meant for intelligence folks, military personnel, but it was discontinued for military use because it lacked, practical value for spying.
That seems to be the official line, yes. Lack of practical value.
But TMI, the Monroe Institute, they kept working on it. Why would a private institute keep plugging away for decades on something born from failed spy tech? Was there some other perceived use beyond the really wild claims?
Yeah, and I think that's the real historical pivot point. Robert Monroe genuinely believed they had stumbled onto something powerful, maybe not a spy gadget, sure, but a tool for self-discovery, for consciousness expansion. He saw the actual structure of the training itself, which we're about to get into, as inherently beneficial. I mean, tens of thousands of people, non-military people, have gone through their programs since then, long before this 2025 study.
Wow.
They were basically running on anecdotal evidence for decades, believing in the benefits people reported.
Okay, so the military use kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
But what exactly was this thing they created? What was the actual mechanism people were experiencing or even paying for? Because it sounds like more than just, simple guided visualization.
Right. Before we jump to the really dramatic 2025 results, we need to understand what people were actually listening to. Because, it's definitely weirder than your average guided meditation tape. The Gateway Training, or GT, it's an integrative approach. It draws on a pretty sophisticated combination of techniques. You've got hypnosis, meditation, verbal affirmations. And then the central technological piece, hemisphere synchronization or hemisync.
Hemisync. That sounds like the core engine. Can you break that down simply for the listener?
Sure. Hemisync uses carefully designed sounds, usually delivered through headphones. They present sounds of slightly different frequencies to each ear, so maybe 100 hertz in the left ear and say 104 hertz in the right.
Okay.
Your brain tries to make sense of those two different inputs, and the difference between them, in this case, 4 hertz, your brain perceives that as a kind of phantom beat, a very low-frequency pulse.
Huh. A phantom beat. And what does that 4 hertz beat actually do to the brain?
Well, the theory is it encourages your brain activity, your brain waves, to synchronize across both hemispheres at that specific frequency. It effectively helps induce specific brainwave states like theta or delta states, usually only reached by very experienced meditators after long practice.
Uh-huh.
Hemisync is designed to be a kind of shortcut, a faster way to get into states linked with deep focus or relaxation or even trance-like states.
And the gateway training mixes this hemisync tech with other methods too.
Yes, exactly. Alongside these binaural beats, the audio tracks include verbal instructions, things like guidance on breathing, positive affirmations you mentioned, "I am more than my physical body" earlier,
Right.
and maybe even other auditory cues, possibly engineered to deepen that trance state and relaxation. Perhaps something like the effect we get with ASMR?
Interesting.
This deep relaxation helps prepare the listener for the hemisync guidance that follows.
And the whole program, the full thing, it's broken down into 36 recordings across 6 themes. They call them waves.
That's right, 6 waves.
And the language in the original documents, it really swings between very technical descriptions and, well, pure mysticism, doesn't it?
That contrast is really the heart of the whole thing. It's so contradictory. The program is highly structured, very methodical. The foundational step is wave I, called discovery, that aims for the state they call focus 10. And focus 10 is the crucial stage that was actually tested in this new 2025 study.
Focus 10. What does that feel like, according to them? What's the definition?
It's defined as mind awake, body asleep. So you achieve this profound physical stillness, deep relaxation, almost like a trance, but you maintain high mental alertness, awareness.
Okay, so that's the gateway, literally.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the entry point to the rest of the program.
But as you go further into the waves, it gets
It's
less.
hard to get it. Right.
The structure is still there, you're still
Yeah.
using hemisync, but the goals just become wildly conceptual.
Absolutely. You jump ahead to wave 3, called freedom, and the stated goal is to, quote, control non-physical energy.
Okay.
Then wave V, exploring, that aims for achieving a sense of timelessness.
Timelessness.
And finally, wave 6, Odyssey, which is claimed to be the bridge to other systems. It encourages exploration of, well, other dimensions entirely.
Wow. It's just a remarkable contrast. They engineer this precise psychoacoustic tool, hemisync, and then they pointed at the most speculative goals you can imagine, consciousness as a holographic projection traveling through dimensions. But the real question, I suppose, is whether that precise engineered tool structure gives measurable results, regardless of whether you believe you're traveling dimensions or not.
And that brings us right up to the present day. This 2025 study finally asked that exact question. Forget the spying, forget the dimensions. Does this structured technique simply make people feel better about their lives? They rigorously evaluated the G's positive effects on general psychological well-being, or PWB.
And they designed a very specific study to test this. Small group, right? Only 12 participants.
Yes, N12. But they were carefully chosen. Mean age was 24.0. And crucially, they were totally inexperienced with meditation or anything similar.
Ah, that's key. They wanted to test the technique itself, not the skills of someone who already meditates a lot.
Exactly. The design was 4 weeks long, a counterbalanced experiment. Participants listened to audios 3 times a week. For 2 weeks, they got one condition, then for 2 weeks, they switched to the other.
And the conditions were?
The experimental condition used those foundational audios from Wave I, the Focus 10 stuff, and the control condition, just a set of audio recordings of continuous rain sounds.
Yeah. Okay. Decades of CIA interest and TMI research. Pit it against a rain track. That's actually a brilliantly simple comparison.
It isolates the effect quite well, yeah.
So what specific metrics were they using? How do they measure well-being?
They used a well-respected tool in psychology called Rife's Psychological Well-Being Scale, the PWS. It's valued because it measures PWB not just as, happiness, but across 6 distinct fundamental areas of life functioning.
Okay, let's break down those 6 areas, because you said the results were broad, and that seems really important here.
Right. So first is autonomy, your sense of self-determination, independence. Second, environmental mastery, basically. Your ability to manage your life, your environment, handle opportunities. Third, personal growth, feeling like you're continually developing, realizing your potential.
Okay.
Fourth, positive relations with others. Pretty self-explanatory. Fifth, purpose in life, having goals, a sense of direction, meaning. And sixth, self-acceptance, having a positive attitude towards yourself, including your past life.
All right, so 6 core pillars of psychological well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And the results, this is where it gets really compelling, you said.
It really is. The study found that participants' psychological well-being improved significantly over time when they were in the GE condition compared to when they were listening to the rain sounds. And this wasn't just, a little bump in one area. The improvement was statistically significant on all 6 measured scales of PWB.
All 6. Wow.
Yeah. Think about that. A 2-week intervention, just listening to these audios, significantly improved people's sense of purpose, their ability to manage their lives, and their self-acceptance all at the same time, among other things.
That's actually quite profound for such a short period.
This is.
But given the whole mystical background of the program, the dimensions, the OBEs the researchers had to check, right? Was this just some kind of a placebo effect? Was it tied to people feeling like they had some kind of transcendent or mystical experience?
Absolutely. They tested for that specifically. They measured whether experiencing a sense of mysticality correlated with the PWB improvement.
Yeah.
And the finding here was really key. Mysticality did not predict the change in PWB. It seems the psychological benefits came from the underlying technical mechanics of achieving that focus 10 state, that mind-awake body asleep, deep relaxation, rather than from any successful remote viewing or feeling like you visited another dimension.
So the method worked, but maybe not for the reasons the creators originally intended.
Precisely. The tool had an effect, just not the one the CIA or maybe even early TMI was looking for. It was improving well-being.
Okay, so what does this all boil down to for you, the listener? We've got this technique, born from, frankly, bizarre Cold War spycraft, that when you strip away the metaphysical aims, seems to work remarkably well as a psychological tool. The most obvious conclusion seems to be the power of the combination of techniques, doesn't it? The synergy.
I think that's the deepest insight here, yeah. The gateway experience isn't really inventing brand new methods from scratch. It's intelligently stacking existing, validated psychological techniques together. For instance, biofeedback, training people to regulate their own physiological states like breathing or heart rate that's explicitly mentioned as a founding pillar of GE in the documents.
Right.
And HemiSync achieves a similar outcome, but using auditory cues to help guide brain states directly.
And you can't ignore the hypnosis element either.
Yeah.
Using verbal suggestions like those affirmations while someone is in that induced, controlled trance state. That's a well-known technique for helping reduce anxiety, improve focus.
Exactly. And then you have parallels to things like transcendental meditation, TM, which uses specific sounds or mantras to induce a relaxed, maybe transcendent state.
So the magic isn't one single component, but how they're layered together.
That seems to be the case. While individual things like binaural beats or hypnosis might help with stress or focus on their own, the GE's genius seems to be its structured approach to stacking them. It kind of forces the listener into deep physiological stillness first. Then it uses that stillness as a platform to deliver psychoacoustic guidance, the HemiSync, to encourage brain synchronization, all while layering in those affirmations to boost positive mental suggestions.
And that unified approach seems to be the driver behind improving all 6 dimensions of well-being at once.
That appears to be the implication, yes.
There's always a but, isn't there? Here's the reality check, and it's a necessary caveat for critical thinking. The study showed these PWB increases were not long-lasting.
That's a really critical limitation of this particular short-term study. The benefits faded quite quickly once the active GE treatments stopped. When participants switched from the GE condition back to the control just listening to rain sounds, their PWB scores dropped significantly.
Okay, so it's not like a magic pill you take for 2 weeks and you're permanently boosted.
Definitely not. The researchers themselves assume that longer, more consistent practice is almost certainly needed for any sustained long-term effect.
Right, it's like exercise, isn't it? You don't hit the gym hard for 2 weeks and then expect to stay fit forever without maintaining it.
Exactly that analogy. Consistency seems key. And we absolutely have to mention the small sample size again. N12 is small for drawing broad conclusions. We need to acknowledge that.
Sure.
However, the fact they got statistically significant improvements across all 6 measured categories and in a group of complete novices, that's powerful enough, I think, to strongly suggest this warrants further larger studies. The robustness of the effect across all scales is what makes this pilot study so compelling, despite the small n.
And we also noted earlier, they only tested wave I, just the entry-level stuff.
Correct.
So these benefits we're seeing, they come purely from achieving that foundational focus 10 state, the deep mind-awake, body-asleep trance. We still have basically no scientific idea what, if anything, the later, more esoteric waves might do for well-being. Or anything else, for that matter.
None from this study, no. What stands out to me, though, is how this old program structure developed decades ago aligns so well with modern ideas about synergistic approaches to well-being. The researchers acknowledge they still need to figure out which specific components or which combinations are doing the heavy lifting. We know the individual parts often work.
So we started with a Cold War psychological warfare experiment, kind of bizarre, and we've ended up with solid scientific evidence for a short-term, unified technique. A technique that boosts autonomy, purpose in life, self-acceptance, environmental mastery, the whole package. And the benefits seem to come not from dimensional travel, thankfully, but from the smart combination of scientifically validated methods, the hemisync, the hypnosis principles, the biofeedback elements.
Right. We've seen that individual pieces like hypnosis or binaural beats can work on their own, we know that. But when you look at the potential power of combining them into one structured, unified approach like this, well, that synergy seems to unlock something potentially much larger, the capacity to improve apparently all 6 major dimensions of psychological well-being simultaneously, even if just temporarily at first.
So here's the final thought for you to chew on. What really stands out to you about that synergy? If simply merging established methods in a structured way is this powerful even in the short term, how might we design future self-help tools? Could we merge these techniques, perhaps refine them, in even smarter ways to achieve sustained, long-lasting results for well-being?
Something to definitely keep mulling over as you think about optimizing your own systems for mental fitness.